Hello, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to set up an Eclipse web development environment as described in this document. First, I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it CS3220, and I'm going to put everything related to this course in this folder. And then we go here to download Eclipse. There are different Eclipse packages here. The one we want is this one called Eclipse IDE for Enterprise Java and web developers. To save time, I have already downloaded it here, and it's just a zip file, so we just need to unzip it. By the way, I'm using 7-zip here. It's much faster than the unzip utility that comes with Windows. Okay, so now let's move it to the 3320 folder we just created, and to run Eclipse, just double click on eclipse.exe. It asks for a workspace folder where the projects will be stored, and let's create one here. Again, under CS3220, I'll call it workspace, and here we go there and check use this as the default, and then launch. Okay, now we have Eclipse. There's one more thing we would like to do. If you have time, check out this article. But basically what we want to do is to exclude the Eclipse and the workspace folder from Windows virus scanner. Otherwise, it takes forever to start up Eclipse. So on Windows, let's search for virus, and it's listing virus and threat protection. And we go to virus and threat protection settings, click manage settings, and exclusions. I already have a bunch of exclusions here. Let's add one more, which is a folder, and I'm going to exclude the whole CS3220 folder. So anything underneath is, of course, excluded as well, and it's right here. Okay, now we're done with this step, and the next step is to install Maven archetype. So go to this Git repository. If you never used Git or GitHub before, that's perfectly fine. We have instructions here which are fairly detailed. The first thing we need is to copy the URL of the repository, which we can do here by clicking on code and then this button, and it says copied. In Eclipse, we want to go to the Git perspective, so Windows perspective, Open perspective, Git, and select the second option, clone a Git repository, and then select clone URI. So notice that the URL we just copied is automatically pasted here. If it's not, you can manually paste it here, and then click next, and then next again. So here, notice this directory. This directory is where the GitHub repository will be cloned to. Later on, we need to import a couple of projects from here. So remember, the location of this directory is by default the user directory, and then Git, and then the project name, which is my Maven archetypes. So click finish. wait a little bit. So now it's cloned. And now go back to Java EE perspective. You can again go to Window perspective, Open perspective, Java EE here. Or if you notice at the upper right corner, there's a couple of buttons that let you to quickly switch between perspectives. So here, we need to import a couple of projects from the repository we just cloned. So select File, Import, and import existing Maven projects. We will have a separate video discussing Maven archetypes and all that. So for now, just follow the instructions. Don't worry too much about what's Maven and whatnot. So select existing Maven projects next, and then go to the repository that our Maven, our Git, go to the directory where our Git repository was cloned to, which is under user, home directory, Git, and Maven archetypes. So Eclipse found a couple of projects under this repository, and one project is a sub-project or module of the parent project. Import them both and wait a little bit. So Eclipse properly configures two projects, and then right-click on the outer project or the parent project and select Run As and Maven Install. Again, don't worry about what Maven Install does. We are going to explain it in a separate video. When we run Maven for the first time, it's going to download a bunch of stuff on demand. Later on, it won't do this again. All the downloaded stuff will be stored in a local Maven repository. If we see two successes, that means great. We have installed the archetype that we need. Once we have that, we no longer need these two projects. We can delete them and make sure you check delete one nested project. You can leave the project on contents on disk in case we need to import them into Eclipse again, but otherwise we really don't need it anymore. So click OK, and it's removed from Eclipse. So now we are done with this step. And let's create our first web application. So we are going to create a web application as a Maven project. So we can either select this one, create a Maven project, or we can go from File, New, Maven project. Either way, it shows a pop-up window. Click Next. And here, we can select from a bunch of so-called archetypes. Maven archetypes are basically project templates. If you start with an archetype, it automatically creates some project structure, adds some sample files that you can modify, and so on. Most of these archetypes are not that useful. We want the one that we just installed ourselves. So in the catalog drop-down list, select default local, and the one we just installed is right here. It's called Simple Servlet Archetype under the group ID edu cscile.cs, and select it and click Next. Here we need to specify a few things for the new project. Group ID basically is a label that represents the organizational unit where the project belongs, and you can make up anything, and I'm going to use edu cscile cs3220. That's kind of our organization. And artifact ID is basically the project name or project label, and I'm going to call it web test. Version, you can make up whatever. And package by default is the group ID plus the artifact ID, which is kind of long. I don't like my top level package to be this long. So I'm going to just change it to CS3220. All the Java classes and other packages will be created under this package. And I'm going to uncheck run archetype generation interactively. If you check this one, basically Maven will ask you again about package name and stuff. We don't want to do that one more time, so check this. Check off this one and click finish. Once again, creating project from archetype. For the first time, we'll download a few things, but later on it won't need to re-download those. So now we can see that we have our first web application inside Eclipse called web test. You can take a quick look. This project template gives us a servlet called Hello Servlet. It also gives us a HTML page called index.html, and for a Maven project, it has a Maven build file, pom.xml. Once again, we'll explain Maven in a separate video. So how do we run this thing? To run a web application, just right-click on it. Just select the project name, right-click on it, and then select Run As and Run on Server. Now, we don't have a server to run web applications yet, so Eclipse asks us to create one. And the one we are going to use is Tomcat version 9.0. So select Tomcat version 9.0 under Apache because they are an Apache project. And then select Next. And here, there's a button that will automatically download and install a Tomcat 9.0 server. So click this button, accept the license, and then select a folder to put it. I'm going to put it under courses, CS3220 again. So select this folder, and as you can see, it's going to be under CS3220 Apache Tomcat 9.071. Now, here's one thing about Eclipse that's kind of bad design. So behind the scene, Eclipse is trying to download this, unzip it, set up a bunch of things, but it doesn't show a progress bar. It simply shows that the specified Tomcat installation directory does not exist. At this point, you would think it's an error, but it's not an error. You just need to wait a little bit. So if you're patient and wait for maybe half a minute, you can see that it's downloaded the Tomcat server, placed under CS3220, and that error message is gone, and the finish button is now enabled. So if you see that message earlier, just wait a little bit, and then click finish, and Windows Firewall will pop up a couple of windows. Let's click allow access. If everything works correctly, we will see this page. This page is basically the index.html page, it shows hello servlet and the hyperlink. If we click on that hyperlink, we see hello world, and the hello world is basically the page generated by the servlet. We, of course, will have a different lecture video explaining servlet and stuff. So this is how we can set up Eclipse web development environment. It should be fairly straightforward. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.